Yeah, first of all, I think we've got to quit thinking about this like a conventional war or even a counter-terrorist operation, and certainly not counterinsurgency. At this point, this is a hostage rescue operation. And many would say that the military is the inappropriate tool to use for a hostage rescue situation. What I'm concerned about is that the military is now going to find themselves in a position that if they do too much, that hostages may be killed as a result, and if they do too little, their mission may fail. So I think we put the Israeli military in a pretty tight bind right now. So they still need to prepare. They still need to be ready to go. But I'm not certain that a lot of the military in Israel are eager for the order to attack into Gaza and into Gaza City in particular.
Well, the president put out a statement saying likely Americans have been taken hostage in Gaza. Gaza is very dense. You're talking about very dense city blocks where there's tunnels also underneath. I imagine Hamas has put hostages in different hiding places. How difficult it is going to be for the Israeli military to find these people?
Very difficult. I mean, we would not send in the 1st Armored Division into Gaza looking for hostages. The purpose of an armored division is to destroy targets and, if necessary, destroy infrastructure, not to be hostage rescuers. But nonetheless, there will be a time for conventional war. But I think my personal view is that the focus of Israel right now ought to be, if they're not willing to invoke the Hannibal Protocol, where they give up on their hostages, then they've got to be thinking about this very, very carefully about how they go about doing this.
So to what extent can the U.S. help, either from an intelligence standpoint or something I might not be thinking of here, and how important will it be for the United States, for the State Department, for this White House to see those American hostages, if there are any, brought to safety?
Yeah, first of all, I think the Americans can support. We've got the Gerald R. Ford, the strike group in the region, which is not just a strike group, but it also has a tremendous planning capability. It also, when you bring in the United States, you bring in intelligence capability. There will be a time, if this turns into a conventional war, that the Israelis will need to be resupplied. It is fortunate that we have the war reserves already pre-positioned in Israel, and the president can hand those over at any time. Even though there have been some taken for the Ukraine war, that at least will hold over the Israelis until we can get some congressional approval for additional funding.
What about diplomacy when it comes to the hostages? I reported earlier this morning that Qatar is putting a lot of pressure and leading a dialogue to try to release these hostages from Hamas. Will Hamas listen to Doha?
Well, let's be very clear. We should be appreciative of Qatar and Doha for allowing our forces to base aircraft in there and conduct combat operations from that location. But I would also say Qatar could have stopped this operation from ever going and beginning. So if they have not helped us in stopping this, let's hope they can help us ending this.
You made a reference to resupplying munitions. Kevin McCarthy was asked earlier today, and it was interesting seeing him, of all people, holding a news conference, effectively as the Speaker of the Republican Conference, even though he's not Speaker of the House. He was asked about funding for Ukraine, funding potentially in a supplemental that we expect for Israel. And his answer included a reference to the lag time that it takes for weapons to be made. And he said, we have our own resupply to worry about here. We have to resupply our own munitions. And that he and Speaker, or the Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, agree on creating a new supply chain, if you will, to speed up manufacturing of munitions. Is this a catalyst for that?
Well, we've had catalysts for the last 75 years to try to overcome the lag and the lack of an American industrial base for weapons. I would not say this will be the catalyst. Perhaps this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back and finally gets some activity and actions necessary so that we have a larger stockpile than we currently have.
We spoke to Ron Dermer, the former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., now strategic advisor, one of Netanyahu's top advisors. And he spoke a lot as well about Iran. I'm going to take a listen to what he had to say.
Iran supports the Shia militias in Iraq. They're trying to establish a beachhead, a terrorist beachhead against Israel in Syria. Now our working assumption is that they may have. Our working assumption a couple days ago was that they hadn't known about it directly. Now it is unclear, and we'll have to wait to verify it. And, you know, when we make an official statement, we'll make an official statement. You can imagine the sense of disgust that we have. We have to send a message to all of Israel's enemies, because we're a strong country, but we're tiny, and we can go from strength to vulnerability. I think people are going to see the strength of Israel, the might of Israel.
Jonathan Farrow asked him about direct evidence that implicates Iran, and he said that is our working assumption. Is that yours as well?
Absolutely. Hamas.
To what extent?
There is little doubt in my mind that Hamas, without the advice and assistance of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, did not have the capability to pull off such a sophisticated attack.
So full-on green light? Obviously, Iran funds Hamas to the fullest, but green light and actual logistics coordination?
I didn't say that.
I'm just trying to get a sense from you on the scale.
They don't need logistics coordination because there has been a pipeline to Gaza for years and years coming out of Sudan, coming out of Lebanon, coming out of Syria. And even now we're worried about this ground resupply from Iran going through Iraq into Syria and Lebanon. Most of this is brought across the water. So the logistics, like our war reserves, the Hamas already had their war reserves there. But this was a very, very complicated military maneuver. The fact that they could create a deception plan that completely fooled the Israeli intelligence service, the fact that they had a combined air, land, sea assault, that is something that is well beyond the capacity of Hamas to do it on their own, but it's right out of the playbook of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps.